This week in episode number 26, we talk about pre-work, what it is, what it isn't, and why you need to care about it. I Love Real Estate Stories, episode number 26, from the trenches. Recently, I've actually started working out a little bit again, which I've got no excuse for not working out because I've got a gym in my basement. I like working out and pre-work like this. When you work out, you're generally working out for something. You want to stay healthy. You want to stay in shape so that you can perform your best when you're doing whatever activity is, whether you're playing basketball, whether you're playing tennis, riding a mountain bike, whatever it is. Pre-work, you have to do that. That's the work you put in before you go to the appointment, so make sure you're on your best game when you're at the appointment. Pre-work is extremely important. If you're going to see private sellers, you need to be ready when you go see those private sellers so that you can focus on them. And being able to be focused on them means you've got to know the house inside and out. And you don't pre-work every property, every person that calls you. You only pre-work the ones that you're actually going to go see. And there's 3 steps to the pre-work. The first step is using Google Maps. I put into Google, literally type into Google 123 Easy Street, Anytown, USA, or whatever the actual property address is. I look at it, not the street view first. I look at just the shot of like what's around, so you can see the streets, you can see
like
if there's
the
map, right?
Illustrated.
Yeah, because you want to know what's around this thing. You want to see, is this on a busy street? Is it next to a park? Is it next to a school? Or is it next to like a sewer plant?
Yeah.
Now, if it's next to a sewer plant, that absolutely affects value. So you just get that wide shot of like the big view of like, okay, what's around this? Then the next thing I do is I click on the street view, so you zoom right in and you can see what it looks like, what it actually is. Are the trees in the neighborhood? Is it kind of a junky neighborhood? Is it a brick house? Is it a siding house? Does it have a garage? Does it have not? It just shows you, and you can get there, look at the house, and you can actually spin around 360 degrees. You can go up the street, you can go back down the street, and you can kind of see what's going on. You see, are there multi-units around here? Is there like a 50-unit apartment complex across the street? Or is it just all residential neighborhoods? So that gives you a good kind of context for this house is. So you've got this understanding of what it is. Then the next thing I do is I go onto the MLS or county records and I see the actual specifics of the house. Square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, garage, what the county says it is, which is very important too. So then you get kind of like that data that's for it and you start to get a feel for the house there. So once you understand that, you kind of know what this house is. Then and only then can you start to compare it with other houses, because you need to know what you are first, what the property you've got is first. Then you can compare it to something else. Step number 3, and probably the most important, is getting comparables for the property. Now you're going to need a couple different types of comparables. One, you're going to need after repaired value. You're going to need to know what this property will sell for when it's fixed up or flipped. The second type you need is as-is comps. What's this thing worth right now in its as-is condition? And the third type of comparable I would say you need is evidence which backs up your case for the price that you're going to offer the seller. So if you know you need to buy it for this price, you're going to use specific comps to show that evidence if you need to show that evidence. When I'm doing comparables, I do things a little bit different too. I'll look at the whole market. I'll look at the whole market around that property. I don't just look at solds. When a lot of people say when they're doing comparables, I want to see the sold properties. Those are important, but just as important to me are the under contracts and the actives. Because the active shows you what's going on right now, what available inventory, what choices do the buyers have, right? Just because something 6 months ago sold for a certain price, if right now everything is listed for a lot higher, there's no other choices. So you know that if the market's trending up, you look at those actives as that's going to be your competition when you get this thing listed. So that's important too. I take this holistic approach of active, under contracts, and sold to put together what I feel like this property is really worth, my gut of what this property is worth. Okay, and this is all from your computer before you've even gone out to see the property.
If you were a new investor and you knew you had to spend like an hour or an hour and a half or something like that doing this pre-work, how would you have confidence that you did it right?
Well, the facts don't lie. I mean,
Okay.
It is what it is. Google Earth, like, that's the address. Is this the house or is this not the house? Is this the street it's on? It's not going to move, right?
Yeah.
Is that the house? Square
Like
footage-wise.
values is what I'm thinking.
Values-wise, and I like to pull values from around that property. So I'm going to see it, and like, if you're looking at this house, and this is a 2,000 square foot brick house right here, and a block over there's a 2,000 square foot brick house that was fixed up, it's like, how do you have confidence? Well, you look at it and say, like, as a normal human being, you think, is this comparable? Another thing that I do with the pre-work is I set up a little folder on my computer called 123 Easy Street, Anytown, USA. I set it up calling it the property address, and then I take those comparables and that information and even screenshots of like the street view of the house, and I'll put them all in that folder. The tax data, I'll put it in the folder. And all this stuff is just evidence that I may use on my appointment, maybe. Because you're there anyway, you're preparing it anyway, you're pulling comparables anyway. You've got those houses that were the less expensive sold properties that could potentially be used as evidence. I put them in that folder so that when I'm there with the seller...
Do you print it out or no?
I don't print anything out. I just put it in... I put it in a cloud-hosted folder. I use Dropbox. So I'll prepare that folder. I'll slide it into the Dropbox. So if I'm there with the seller, I can pull out my phone or my iPad, is what I used to use, and I can pull up the Dropbox and I can say, oh, okay, here it is. Here's the information. Because sometimes they're like, oh, my house is 2,500 square feet, and you know for a fact that it's only 2,100 square feet. Instead of insulting them, you can say, oh, actually, I'm not sure. Let me pull it up and see, because I know I did some research on the county data. Let me see. Oh, that's weird. They have it as 2,100 square feet. I don't know why do you think they have it as that? And they're like, oh, okay, so it's not you refuting the information. It's like, there's the hard facts, right?
Yeah.
Or they say, oh, my neighbor down the street sold for $200,000. And you're like, oh, really? What? Was it this one? This neighbor right here? Oh, yeah, that's the one. You're like, did you know they were 2,800 square feet? Right? It's like you have the data and the facts from your pre-work. You've gone through and you've done your homework, basically, so that if you have to, you can use that stuff. In your sales presentation, in your negotiation and things. But pre-work is extremely important so that you can get all that stuff in your head. You know what the property's worth, you know the square footage, you know all those things that you think it is. So when you go into it, you can just focus on the seller. So you get in there because you've already got all your pre-work done, so you can just focus on that appointment. And you've also got that information if you have to use it with the seller afterwards. So, and then the next thing you do is you adjust the values on site. You take what you thought it was from what you saw at your computer to when you actually get on site. It could be better or worse than you thought.
You're thinking it's like more. It's closer to this as-is price, or it's closer to the flip price. Right?
Yeah, because you've got all that data in your head that you've done with your pre-work, so you can adjust that stuff on site. I always said that comping is kind of an art, not really a science. Because if it was a science, just any computer could do it. But really, it takes a human looking at it and saying, is this better than that? How much does a garage add? How much does a park in the backyard add? Or how much does this detract since it's on a busy road? And there's no it's just it's very subjective. So in that subjectivity, that's the arbitrage. That's why real estate investors exist, because they're willing to take risks and they're willing to see value that's not there yet, but they know they can add that value and make it worth more, right? Because when you're buying a house from them, and you're showing them the as-is comps, and you're telling them what you can pay as is, you're absolutely being truthful with them. That really, right now, that's what this property is worth. Now, as an investor, once you buy it and add the value, once you put your vision into practice on that house, it's worth more money, and that's how you got paid.
Goodbye.